We've discussed the logistics of the siege, the months of building, the mounds of earth, and the preparation, but today we look at the most dangerous element on the battlefield, the commander's mind. This lesson is a warning about the psychological toll of the stalemate. Sun Tzu knows that laying siege is a test of character. It's frustrating, it's expensive, and as the days turn into weeks, the pressure to just get it over with becomes a siren song that leads many leaders to their doom. Sun Tzu warns that a leader who allows stress to build up will eventually snap. They will look at the fortification that refuses to break and in a fit, order a full charge to end the stalemate. He calls this the ultimate disaster. If you order your men to storm the walls out of anger rather than strategy, you aren't fighting a war. You are committing mass sacrifice. Sun Tzu's math is grim. You will lose a third of your troops, the walls will still be standing, and your own position will be fatally weakened. In early 2023, we saw a modern manifestation of this impatience during the assault on the Ukrainian town of Vuhledar. Russian commanders, facing immense pressure to show results, launched repeated armor and infantry assaults against a heavily fortified, elevated position. Because these charges were driven by a desperate need for a victory, rather than waiting for the right conditions, the result was catastrophic. Entire brigades were decimated, and dozens of vehicles were lost in a matter of days. As Sun Tzu warned, the irritation of the leader left behind a field of dead without taking the objective. In siege warfare, there is no such thing as a quick fix. The temptation to send troops to climb the walls, or, in modern terms, to charge a trench line, is often born from political pressure or a bruised ego. Think of the battle for Bakhmut. For months, the Wagner Group and the Russian regular forces threw waves of men at a single city. When a commander feels they are losing face or losing time, they stop treating their soldiers as assets and start treating them as ammunition. Sun Tzu tells us that the moment a leader gives in to this anger, they have lost their supreme excellence. They are no longer a strategist. They are just a gambler on a losing streak. The war tip for this lesson is simple, but incredibly difficult to follow. Never give in to anger or impatience. In the invasion of Ukraine, we've seen that when either side remains patient, using long-range precision strikes to degrade enemy supplies rather than rushing their defenses, they achieve more with less blood. Patience in a siege is not doing nothing. It is the active discipline of waiting for the enemy's will to crack before your own temper does. If you find yourself in a stalemate, remember, the wall in front of you is hard, but the clock in your head is harder. If you charge out of anger, you are simply building a monument of your own failure with the bodies of your men. To summarize this lesson, impatience is a weapon used against yourself. The emotional toll. A siege is designed to frustrate the attacker. If you let that frustration dictate your orders, you have played right into the defender's hands. The 33% rule. Sun Tzu warns that an angry charge will cost you a third of your force for zero gain. That is a trade no commander can afford. The moral of the field. A field of dead is the only thing a leader leaves behind when they choose a full charge over a calculated stratagem. In modern conflict, the walls may be minefields and drone-monitored kill zones. But the lesson is the same. The moment you let your anger lead the charge, you have already surrendered the victory. As we wrap up our look at this lesson, we are left with a sobering reminder. The greatest enemy of a general isn't the army behind the wall, but the shadow of their own ego. Sun Tzu's warning against impatience is perhaps the most human lesson in the scroll of stratagems. He recognizes that war is a pressure cooker. When you are pouring money and men into a siege that refuses to move, the temptation to force a victory is almost overwhelming. But in the art of war, force is a signature of a failed strategist. Let's recap the core takeaways. The stalemate as a test. A siege isn't just a physical barrier, it's a psychological one. The winner is the one whose discipline outlasts the other's frustration. The cost of the charge. When you attack out of anger, you aren't calculating odds, you are reacting to stress. Sun Tzu's field of dead is a literal price of a leader losing their cool. The modern parallel. We see this in the meat waves of modern conflict. Infantry sent into the teeth of defenses because the calendar demands a victory that the strategy hasn't earned. The final war tip is the one for the ages. Discipline is the ultimate siege weapon. If you cannot take the fortification with intelligence and patience, you certainly won't take it with a temper tantrum. In the end, the commander who remains calm while the clock ticks is the one who eventually sees the gates open. Those who rush the walls out of irritation only ensure they won't be there to walk through those gates when they finally fall. Stay patient, stay calculated, and never let your anger write the check that your soldiers' lives have to cash.